Both of my parents were heroin addicts. So before I was even born, everything was already a mess. Far back as I remember my earliest memories at 4 years old, I remember inside the family room there was boxes of tool chests and VCRs and TVs that people had traded in for drugs. My mom was a heroin addict. My dad was the functioning addict out of the two of them, so he was the one making the money. He was selling drugs basically his whole entire life. My mom felt guilty because they had money. There was a Toys R Us, or a Toy City, around the corner down the street. My mom would take me there, and I remember they bought me all the Batman toys, all the villains, the Batcave, the Batmobile, every Ninja Turtle figure, the sewer, the Technodrome. I had everything. And they would put me in my room and just leave me in there with the door shut, distract me so they can go in their room and do their thing. I learned at an early age, all the material things, all the shiny objects, none of that matters if you don't have friends or family members or loved ones to share it with. And it kept me distracted for a while. I remember having fun with every toy that I had. But I remember there were moments when I would go to my parents' door and I would knock on the door and I would just hit the door and cry for them to come out, cry for my mom, and they never came out. I remember nights when I'd wake up in the middle of the night and be afraid or have a nightmare. And I remember just hitting the door, hanging on the doorknob, crying for my mom, crying for them to open the door, come out and protect me or comfort me, and they never did. They never came out. And then I'd be so afraid to go back to my room in the dark hallway. I remember just curling up in a ball, fetal position, and just sleeping the rest of the night on the floor. I remember one morning I was sleeping, and my mom and dad were already going at it. They were fighting really bad. And I remember they burst in my door, scared me. And my dad was chasing my mom, screaming and cussing, and my mom grabbed me and held me up as a shield, hoping that it would stop my dad or calm him down. And my dad swung and just hit me in the face. There was never no love and comfort. They were never supportive with me or emotional. So about 10 years ago, my mom, they told her that she was gonna pass away. She was real sick, hepatitis from sliming heroin and lung disease from all the years of smoking. The doctors only gave her 3 years left to live. And my brother was just wearing her down. He was a lot younger and special needs. He didn't understand the significance of her health issues and problems. So she called me over to help her with the car, jump-started or something. So I went down there and I just lost two uncles subsequent to one another at that moment. One from, hepatitis, sliming heroin, cancer, the other one from drinking. And so the doctors had told me my mom was not gonna have much longer to live. So I went over there kind of emotional, trying to defend my mom and passionately, expressing myself to my brother, telling him that he needs to stop pushing mom so hard, she's not gonna last much longer. And my brother just snapped and just came at me. I guess he's my little brother, but he's a big boy. And I underestimated him, and he just took me by surprise, and he just started beating me with all of his might, just hitting me in the head. I remember my wife at the time came up from the car because she was downstairs. Her and my mom were trying to pull my brother off. They're trying to, they got on the phone, they called the cops. Finally, my brother kind of snapped out of it, realized what he was doing, and he ran off and went back in the house and locked the door. My head was busted. I had a fractured skull, concussion, knots and bruises all over my entire head, the back of my head, my forehead, the temple. It was split open in the front. I was bleeding everywhere, all over my arms, all over the ground. The paramedics came, the cops came, the neighbors were all standing out, the police were there. My mom panicked. She said, my son came, he bursted in here, he was causing a ruckus, he was causing problems and yelling at us. We don't know why he came, he was uninvited, he just burst his way in. So the cops told me, what were you doing here? I said, my mom brought me here. She invited me here. She needed help. He said, that's not what your mom said. She gave us a complete different story. He said, is there anyone here to confirm your story? I said, my wife. She's with the kids in the car. The cop came back to me and said, you're lucky your wife was able to confirm your side of the story, because otherwise you'd be arrested right now going to jail. I don't even think my mom realized what she did. What would she have done if they would have handcuffed me and took me away? Would she have said, oh snap, I'm sorry, I lied? What would she have done at that point if that would have happened to that, if it would have came to that? My dad showed up, and I remember he looked at me. He said, now you learn to keep your mouth shut. You got what you deserved. And I was still disoriented. I just looked at him and said, what? Are you kidding me? Not, are you okay? What happened? So he walked off. I called the cops over. I said, you know what? I want to press charges. At that point, I just figured I'm just cutting all three of them off. They can all go. My dad called me 3 weeks later, not to ask me how I was doing, how was I feeling, what did the doctor say, how bad was it. He called me to say, hey, mijo, don't press charges or everyone in the neighborhood will think you're a rat. He didn't even care about how I was feeling or my condition. I went to the doctor's emergency room. I mean, I had to get CAT scans, MRIs, x-rays. The doctor's looking at the x-rays and everything on the wall. He's telling me the condition of it, the significance of the damage. He looked at me and he said, you know, what happened? I said, I got in an altercation. I didn't want to get into the dysfunctional family details. I said, I got into a fight. He said, do you know who did it? I said, yeah. The doctor looked at me. He said, I seriously hope you're pressing charges because you're never going to recover from these symptoms. I was dealing with brain atrophy. Every year for the next 7 years, I had to get MRIs, CAT scans, x-rays, all kinds of neurosurgeons and neurologist appointments, trying to bounce back, trying to recoup from the beating that I took. Loss of brain volume, had them worried about other symptoms that might occur. It was just a long road, hard road, a long nightmare. For the next 8 years, I mean, I didn't talk to my mom and dad. I waited for an apology. I waited for them to ask me, what did the doctor say? How bad was it? What happened? You know, they never asked me. My mom passed away a couple years ago, February 6, 2020. And I stayed mad at her. I held a grudge. I was hurt. I waited for her to apologize. I waited for an explanation, and she passed away. And I never got one. I waited for them. I mean, I would mention I have appointments with the neurologists and the neurosurgeons. I waited for them to ask me how bad was it so I could throw it in their face and let them feel guilty. They never asked me once. My mom passed away and never knew the significance of the damage. My dad, I confronted him after my mom passed. I told him I waited my whole life for an apology from you. He looked around and said, apologize for what? I said, I've cut you off all these years from my life. I haven't talked to you. I didn't, you know, we haven't had a bond. I'm not there with you. We don't talk to each other. I wanted to make him suffer the way he made me suffer. I wanted to hurt him the way he hurt me. I wanted him to feel that pain. And he looked around and said, when was this? I didn't even notice. I cut that guy off for years and he still slept like a baby. He didn't even notice that I was upset, dying inside, hurt inside, waiting. It didn't faze him. When my mom died, my dad didn't cry. He didn't even speak at the funeral. When my grandpa died, I've never seen my dad shed a tear. He doesn't cry. He has no feelings, no emotions, just stone cold. I don't understand how you could destroy lives, be an abusive person, hurt people your whole entire life, and be completely oblivious and not know it. I waited for years for him to be there for me, and he never did. He never cared. By the time I became a father, I never wanted my kids to feel the way I did. I never wanted them to have to go through anything alone. When my son was born, me and his mom were already separated. I didn't deny my son. I didn't ask for a paternity test. I stepped to the plate right away and knew I'm going to be there in his life. I'm going to be the best father at 15 years old. I'm going to be there. I'm going to do everything I can to be the father that I never had. The more time I spent with my kids, the more the passion began to grow. I started volunteering at the school and just investing in all the other classmates, all the other kids. I started spending time with all of my younger cousins, all of my nieces and nephews. I remember me and my wife at the time, we would have them spend the night. We would take them swimming. We would take them to Chuck E. Cheese, Disneyland. We'd take a bunch of them to the movie theaters. I mean, I did everything with my nieces and nephews, take them to Comic-Con, and I didn't have a lot of money at the time. It was just the passion. I felt like I never wanted another kid to have to go through what I went through. By the time my daughters were born, I didn't want to just go into it blindly and make mistakes along the way and damage my kids the way my parents damaged me. I began to watch videos, read books on active parenting, child development, human development, child psychology, child communications, take parenting classes just to be a better father, just so I could raise my children the right way, prepare them for life, for independent living, so that they can be successful and happy and protected. This was the moment I waited for. You know, this is what I was put on this earth to do, was to invest in my kids and to just have this undying passion to be the best father for them that I could be.